Welcome to the Don't Let That Go Over Your Head podcast, starring Q the Boss.
Yo, 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 yo. Welcome back to another episode of Don't Let That Go Over Your Head podcast. They call me Q the Boss. Today we got a very special topic. Today we talking about struggle creates character. See, some people hate that term struggle because they don't understand you have to go through some kind of adversity, some kind of pain. But the reality is going through pain is actually what creates you to being the best version of self. Sometimes we hate that word struggle. Tap that screen if you love my content, guys. The struggle is what creates the character. I'm going to give some of my struggles today, and some of y'all, I want y'all to engage and tell me some of y'all struggles. But I went through a lot of struggles, man. One thing I realized that most people struggle with is something called consistency. I realized that a lot of people are very inconsistent with the things that they don't want, but they're very consistent with the things that they say they do want. Like, for instance, a person will tell you they want certain levels in life, but they're very inconsistent with it. One thing I struggle with, I'm going to be honest with, I have something called a sweet tooth. I love sweets. And I'm trying to get over it, and I'm fighting it, and I'm fighting it. It's a battle, guys. For those who struggle with this thing, please give me some tips. Maybe I need to be hypnosis or something, but I'm so addicted to sweets, right? That's one of my struggles. But again, I'm working on it, guys. I'm definitely going to get past this stage. The consistency of the sweets, I need it. I yearn for it. I urge for it. I got to break this habit because I realize that it's not going to help me get any better. Plus, I don't want to be diabetic. That's one thing I don't want to be. I don't want to be diabetic. So I want to break this habit. But one thing people don't acknowledge is that sugar is actually one of the most abused drugs in the world. Let me say that again. Sugar is one of the most abused drugs in the world. And I will say that sugar is my struggle. I struggle with it, right? Another thing that people struggle with is doing things that would be better for themselves. They struggle with doing things that's better for themselves. A lot of people don't like to do things that's better for themselves, right? You always go hard to benefit others, but when are you going to start benefiting yourself? When you're going to start helping yourself? When you're going to start doing things that put you in better positions? When you're going to start sacrificing the things you want for the things you want? The things you could have is what you're willing to do to get it. A lot of us don't see that we are our worst enemy. That's the struggle. When you can look in the mirror and look at yourself and say, I love the person I'm starting to become. Because one thing you must love is enjoying the process of becoming. The process of becoming is what allows you to enjoy the becoming. Some of us look at our life like it has to happen overnight. But I'm going to tell you something. Nothing of value starts and happens overnight. Nothing. There is nothing worth anything that will happen overnight. I always tell my son, if a girl sleep with you on the first night, would you marry her? He always says no. And I said, why? He said, because she has no value, because she was willing to give it to me too easy. And I always break that down as an analogy to if things happen so fast, would they have any real value? It's the struggle that creates our character. A lot of us avoid struggle, but it's the struggles that actually allow people to become the best versions of self. When you look in the mirror, right, ask yourself, and this is something called affirmations. When you say to yourself, I'm doing better, stop saying you're not, you can't, I won't. Start saying I will. Start speaking life into yourself. Look in that mirror and say stuff like, I'm going to no matter what. Commit yourself. Dedicate yourself. That's the struggle. A lot of us is fighting something called generational trauma. Generational trauma is trauma that you inherited that you didn't expect to. There are a lot of people fighting things that they cannot control within themselves. You ever see some people, they fly off the reservation with anger? There's something called underlying issues. There are issues that you may not magnify, right? Therefore, the person not getting help for it ultimately comes out as rage or anger. There are people who resort back to certain behavior patterns because of the way they was raised. I was telling a guy the other day, every time relationships don't go the way he wants, what he does is he runs to the next woman. I was telling a woman the same thing. Every time things don't go the way she would like in a relationship, she runs to the next relationship. So now she becomes a runner. She's a track star. He and she's going to run away when things get hard, right? And that becomes their character. So when you realize that them struggles, right? When you see any great relationship, best to believe that they've been through the hardest battles. When you see any great relationship, understand that they've been through the greatest battles. Because a relationship cannot, if it cannot stand the test of time, then it cannot stand the test of love. In order to persevere through a relationship, one must go through something. No relationship has any kind of value that hasn't been battle tested. See, sometimes we say we want this, we want that. You look at someone else's window or their lens and you see their relationships and you say, this is what I want. But you don't realize that those relationships that persevered are the ones that went through the most struggles. The person that looks the most successful is the one that might be fighting the most battles every day. That person sits there every day and commit themselves. But a lot of people say, I want this. But again, you can't say what you want. Your actions have to manifestate your greatness. It's not your mouth. Most people speak things with their mouth, but their actions don't represent what they say they want. You say you want to be great, but your actions are actually standing behind your words. Your words have to stand behind your actions. Your actions have to lead your mouth. Your actions have to be led by your mouth. I can sit down every day and question myself and say that I want. But if I'm not willing to do anything, will it happen? Of course, it's a no. But some of us believe that it will still happen because the term manifestation has been blown out of proportion. If you go to a religious standpoint, right, which I don't like to force on you guys, but the Bible says faith without work is dead. Faith without work is dead. Or another term, nothing. When you hear that term, faith without work, meaning the work is the most vital part about the action. What you're willing to do is with the representation of where you will get to. The magnitudes that you see some people at is because they made great sacrifices. Sometimes I wake up and still struggle. I used to suffer from something called, and I want everyone to hear this. This was bad for me for years. I had something called imposter syndrome. And I also had something called survivor's remorse. When you've made it out of certain situations, you look at yourself and wonder, like, why were you so special when people were better than you and you feel like you've left people behind? Or you lost people who passed away along your journey. It wasn't easy losing people while I was trying to go better for better. So a part of me felt like, damn, I left these people alone. Damn, I didn't help these people. Damn, I could have done so much more. And I fought with this for many years. A survivor's remorse is real. It's like, imagine being in a car, right? Watch this analogy. You're in a car and you have 3 of your friends outside of yourself, so it's 4 of you guys in a car. You get into an accident and the only person that lives is you, the driver. This is a survivor's remorse. I had a lot of it, guilt, about not feeling like I was doing enough for people. But sometimes I had to realize that it's not that I'm not doing enough for people, it's not they're not willing to do things for themselves. It becomes a level of codependency. The other day I was telling a person, and I was saying, relationship-wise, a lot of people date because they have a level of codependency. What I mean by codependency is they don't feel comfortable being alone. A healthy, safe relationship is one who can provide for themselves. When a person chooses you, right, they choose you and they don't need you, that is the most healthiest relationship. But I realized that our level of relationships in 2024 is all about codependency. What can I get out of this situation to make me better? If I'm insecure, I'm going to date someone who's going to feed my ego. If I don't love who I see, I want someone to love me more than I love myself. This is the new level of dating. It's a level of codependency that you're seeing people do because they struggle with a lot of different things. Our characters is flawed. Our character has a lot of imperfections. Our character has holes in them. And that's an analogy that we realize that we don't see. A lot of us, our characters are so sick because we've learned how to be sick. We only passing on a sickness to the next generation. So I ask this question, how can you heal a village when the sickness are the people? How can you heal a village when the sickness are the people? The people are the sickness. It's not a flu. It's not a plague. It's not a virus. It's the people. How can you heal when the people are the sick? It's the people. So when you realize that our characters are we struggling with this magnitude, right? A lot of us don't want to see our own truth. I know people who are scared to walk in their own greatness because others don't want them to be great. I know people who struggle with the brightness of their own light, and they dim their own light because they're worried about others not accepting them. I know people who are talented and don't want to show their talent because they're worried about others not seeing or seeing too much of their talent because others get inferior to their greatness. I'm gonna tell you something. I remember being that kid in the class who struggled with raising my hand because of the fact that I was worried about people judging me. I was so scared to raise my hand because I knew I was intelligent. I was scared to raise my hand because I knew others would get intimidated. I was scared to raise my hand because I was scared to be looked at as a cornball. Now today I'm raising my hand. And I suggest somebody start raising their hand. If you know the answer, raise your hand. And if you don't know the answer, ask a question. And that's what we need to start doing. A lot of us don't want to ask questions, so we don't raise our hand, ultimately going through life, forgetting to ask questions or to answer the answer that you already know the answer to. You know the answer, but you won't answer it because of the fact that you're worried about others and what they're thinking. A lot of us are insecure about what others think. Rather than looking at ourselves in the mirror, once one loves himself, they cannot be told that they're not who they truly are. Once you know who you are, others will tell you you're not who you are. Once you know who you are, others will tell you you're not who you are because they're intimidated about you finding yourself because others haven't found themselves. It is weird when you found your mission, your goal, your results, and others haven't found it. Are you going towards your projections or your success and others haven't still found themselves? It makes a lot of people uncomfortable. A lot of people are playing hide and seek alone. A lot of people are playing tag as if they was froze and they're standing there alone. A lot of people are playing, what's the game we call it? What is it? Manhunt. And they out here hunting by themselves. We play alone. A lot of us are doing things alone, not realizing that life is not about being alone. It's about finding people that help you identify issues that are wrong with you by telling you the truth. Struggle creates character, guys. Struggle creates character. If we see from the current view, right, it is a failure. But if you see the journey after reaching the bar of success, it is like, oh, I struggled a lot to get here. Let me say that one more time. If you see the current view, right, it looks like failure. But if you see the journey after reaching the bar of success, it looks like, oh, I struggled a lot to get here. Because when one don't understand, in order to struggle, you have to struggle forward. Some of us struggle backwards. We allow ourselves to believe that we aren't who we truly think we are. There's a reason why one dreams their dreams because of the fact that it matters they have to bring their dreams into reality. A lot of us dream, but we're scared of reaching for them. There's a dream within grasp, but I'm gonna avoid going after my dream because I'm scared of what I'm gonna have to do because before I can reach my dream, I gotta go through a lot of nightmares. And I'm scared to go through my nightmares, but my dream can only manifestate if I'm willing to go through the nightmares first. But a lot of us don't want that, right? We're scared of the dream. It's the dream. One must understand in order to dream, one must believe that I have to go through my nightmares before I can get to my dreams. And going through the nightmare, a lot of times you're gonna have to go through your struggles. These are the things that's gonna show you the truth. And by accepting the truth, one can change the truth. One cannot change the truth if they're not willing to tell themselves the truth. So what ultimately happens? The lie becomes the truth. Then we live in a false reality because we become something called delusional. And once a mind becomes delusional, the mind believes what it believes. It's hard to change a delusional mind because the mind has made reservation for its thoughts and its beliefs. But as a person makes reservation for their thoughts and their beliefs, they start manifesting what they think is true. This is the sad part. It's the struggles. It's the struggles that creates our character. It is hard to wait around for something you know might never happen. But it's harder to give up when you know everything you want. Let me say that again. It is so hard to wait around for something you know might never happen, but it's harder to give up when you know it's everything you want. You're giving up on what you want. My struggles is what created my character. A lot of people say it's a thin line. Watch this narrative, guys. You say the fence. Look at the fence. Stay with me. It's a fence, right? A lot of people say that you're strong, but when you're too strong, you're considered masculine toxicity, right? In order to be great, one has to have a level of delusion, meaning you have to believe in yourself beyond the average. You have to sound a little arrogant. But a lot of times, arrogance get misconstrued with confidence because they're so closely related. Arrogance, confidence, and delusion. There are certain levels that you have to believe in order to achieve. There's a lot of times when I tell people all the time, when I started revealing my struggle, I started healing my struggle, and I could not heal from my struggles because I wasn't willing to reveal my struggles. A lot of times you talk to men and you talk to women, and a lot of times we tell ourselves that we want to be somebodies. We want to do more. We want to be great. But I'm going to tell you something. The hardest thing about becoming is going through the process to become. When I was younger, right, I was around a lot of energy that told me that real men don't cry. Watch this. I was the boy who was told that real men don't cry. I became the child who was told that real men don't cry, who became the young adult who was taught that real men don't cry. Then I became the adult, still hearing real men don't cry. And then what happened to me along this process is I would feel pain and I would tell myself real men don't cry, ultimately making myself sick because it's like holding in something that is so toxic to you. Because a lot of the times the people that taught you how to behave as such, they've taught you how to be very toxic. Because again, I wasn't allowed to speak on anything that was hurting me. Because if I would tell something to someone that it was bothering me, right? You know what they would say? You weak, you soft, you're a coward, you're a punk. And this is a sick mentality because I'm gonna tell you something. One doesn't understand that the most vulnerable people, if you're vulnerable, that's the most strongest person. The strongest people are the most vulnerable because it takes power, confidence, strength to reveal what's going on with you. But yet and still we've been told for many years that the person that's the strongest is the one that don't reveal. But how do you reveal? Rather, how do you heal what you don't reveal? How? Where there is no struggle, there is no strength. Where there's no struggle, there's no strength. So I realized that I had to go through these struggles. And the struggle I realized that was plaguing me the longest and the most was the fact that I had the unwillingness to speak on anything that bothered me. And I genuinely believe that these things bothered me longer than I gave light. There's somebody on my life right now that gotta admit, me growing up without my father actually hurt me more than I gave light to. It gave me a level of aggression that I didn't realize that I had. I could not pinpoint what was my issue, so it came out in anger. Every time something would happen, I would overly exaggerate the problem to the point where I felt like I had to get aggressive. Watch this narrative. If you take a woman, right, Kenzie, she's aggressive. That's a woman being a woman. But if you take a man that's hyper-aggressive, that's a very dangerous man. A hyper-aggressive man in his feelings is a very dangerous man. So imagine my size and now having this hyper-aggression. And that was my problem. That was my problem. Because I wasn't allowed to identify what was wrong. I wasn't allowed to speak on anything that bothered me. And the struggles created my character. A lot of the times people say, yo, you willing to go online and be vulnerable? I said, because I want one of my brothers to heal. I'm willing to reveal my testimonies because I want one of my brothers to heal. I took a lot of anger within me because of the fact that I saw a lot of pain from my mother. My mother's struggles actually became my ambition, my drive, my motivation. Because I realized there was no man coming to save my mother, so I realized that I had to be that man that was gonna save my mother. Let me say that again. I realized that no man was coming to save my mother, so I had to become that man that was gonna save my mother. No man was gonna give my mother a home, so I had to give my mother a home. I remember the first time, and I'm gonna say this, the first time, right, I bought my mother a set of diamonds. I bought my mother diamond earrings, and my mother started crying. And at first, I thought my mother was crying because she loved the gift. And my mother stopped and gave me a hug. And I said, what is the hug for? My mother said, no man has ever bought me diamonds in my life. And that broke me down because it was like, damn, like no man has ever bought my mother diamonds before. There's a lot of women right now who hasn't ever been bought in diamonds. They say the average man don't get flowers, but for the first time is the day they die. The average man don't get flowers for the first time is the day they die. Looking back, I said, damn, you know, like, I never knew. And my mother said, a lot of the things, and I'm gonna give y'all this, ladies, my women, I want y'all to hear this good. A lot of women, they're frustrated. I'm gonna be honest with you. They're angry, they're aggressive, because they also have that same mentality that I was taught. That big girls don't cry. Big girls don't whine. You don't need no man. Worry about yourself. Fix it. They were taught by broken women how to be broken also. I was taught by broken men how to be a broken man. And you don't learn what broken look like until you realize that you're broken. I was very broken. See, that struggle word, right? That thing actually affected me more than I believed. I sat back many a nights and thought like, damn, I don't know. Why am I feeling so much anger inside? Why do I feel so aggressive? Like, what is my problem? And when you sit around other men who haven't reached this level of maturation, of maturity, they don't understand how to express it to you. So you know what us young guys do? We take it out on anger. We fight. We talk crazy. We disrespect people. Because the natural order of life is hurt people, hurt people. And while I was hurting, I had to hurt others. That was the struggles. But looking back, realizing that I had to face my struggles in order to break my struggles. I try to avoid them. I try to avoid every problem when I didn't realize that I had something called the dope privilege, as Kinsey loves to say. I had a dope privilege. I can fix this problem. My mother bills is killing her, but guess what? I can do more. I'm not gonna sit back and say that my life is what it is, but I'm not realizing that it's on me to fix it. I complained more than I was willing to give action towards it. So what happened was, I'm gonna tell you exactly what I did. I looked for the excuse, right? I found the excuse. After I found the excuse, I started dating my excuse. After I started dating my excuse, guess what I did? I got engaged to my excuse. Once I got engaged to my excuse, I walked down the aisle and ultimately married my excuse, ultimately staying in that excuse for the rest of my life, because you know, it was a lifetime commitment to my excuse. But today I decided to get divorced to my excuses. I got a divorce. I said, no more making excuses. No more telling myself what I want to hear, telling myself the truth, going around people that hold me accountable. Tap that screen, guys, if y'all loving this content. Tap that screen. I'm going to just be honest. It's the struggles that create the character. Some of the greatest people that you'll ever see, they have the craziest backstories. Every person I keep meeting that is successful, they have a crazy backstory. Crazy. Some of the things that make you want to cry. I know women that are billionaires who are rape victims. I know men who made it out to the NBA who came out of nothing but projects and single mothers on welfare. And I know them personally. And I'm telling you, every person that I keep winning and that's winning always have a backstory. But it's that struggle, right? That's what creates our character. We avoid the obstacles, right? The obstacles. We avoid them. But why is that? Because you've been taught that it is weak to be vulnerable with not looking in your life like, damn, vulnerability is actually the catalyst for strength. Obstacles don't have to stop you. If you run into a wall, don't turn around and give up. Figure out how to climb up it and go through it or work around it. That's what it's for. They say that most people choose the road of less resistance because most people hate resistance. But resistance is stretching you out, right? So what happens when you let go of that stretch, right? You come back faster. Some of us don't want to be stretched out. We don't want to go expand ourselves to the levels where we're starting to see that we can actually be greater. A lot of us are fearful. But when pursuing your greatest version of self, you will see the ugliest version of yourself. You will. You will have to face the fact that you're lazy. You will have to face the fact that you're always tired. You will have to face the fact that your daddy or your mama had problems. You will have to face the fact that you got generational trauma. You will have to face the fact that there are things that's going on in you don't know why. Because we are a very hormonal culture. And we are all over the place. A lot of us don't identify what's wrong with us. Why? Why do you have so much anger against women, man? Ladies, why do you have so much anger against men? Because clearly, Dad, your mother wasn't the woman that she should have been for you. Clearly, your dad wasn't the man that he was supposed to be there for you. And ladies, some of us are still searching, some of you ladies, and I'm gonna say that, some of y'all are still searching for that man that you wish was your father. That's the struggles. That's the struggles. That's what we don't want to talk about, man. This struggle thing is real. I'm gonna tell you, like, growing up with the lack of, I'm gonna tell you something. I didn't even know how poor we was until I realized how poor we was. I ate beans and franks. I didn't see nothing wrong with that. Ramen noodles was a regular eat for me. I didn't see nothing wrong with that. Me and my brothers used to eat burgers on a grill that we used to put newspaper in, and we used to keep feeding newspaper to eat the burgers, not realizing that it was unhealthy as hell. We probably was eating all the letters that was in the newspaper in the burgers. But that's how we lived. But one thing I will say is, even through my struggles, I was always happy. I think when you start realizing that money will never complete a person, money only enhances the person you truly are. If you are a clown, broke, you're gonna be a clown with money. If you're a fool that's broke, you're gonna be a fool with money. If you're gonna be a fool, if you're gonna be whack, broke, you're gonna be whack with money. Because I'm gonna tell you something, if money makes you feel like who you are, then you're not truly who you are. Finances should never be the catalyst to do you love or respect yourself. Money should not be the catalyst to if you or do not respect yourself. When it took me years to realize that money is not my God. Money does not complete me. Money is not everything. Money is not whether I respect somebody or not. Money is not gonna buy me happiness. Once I learned that, I started realizing what money was for. Money was actually created for as a tool, right? A tool to allow me to get certain aspects of life, right? Giving my family a better life, putting myself in a better position, making myself a little bit more comfortable so I don't have to work as much. That's what it took me years to realize what was money for. I sat back every day wondering, like, why am I so unhappy? Because people think that suicide rate is higher in people that's more economically secure. But why is that? Because money is not their God. Because an unhappy mind without money is gonna still be unhappy with money. After you done traveled everywhere in the world, and after you done bought every car, after you lived in every big house, but there's still no love around you. Damn. There's still no love around you. You still got a bunch of fake people around you. When I sit back and watch some people trauma bond, right? You'll see that they come from a certain level of trauma and they bond based on the fact that they come from traumas. Then you see that every struggle in your life has shaped you into the person that you are today. Be thankful for the hard times. It can only make you stronger. But a lot of us don't see that as our struggles that actually made us stronger. When I went through my problems, I told a story, right? When I got locked up and I was so arrogant, I was so overly confident, right? That I ended up going into a cell. And when I went into the cell, there was a Muslim guy and his name was Mujahid. And when I got in the cell, but I didn't even know who he was just an older gentleman to me. I told him like, yo, OG, I don't get on nobody's top bunk. I suggest you get on that top bunk. OG looked at me and said, what you say, youngster? I said, I'm gonna say this again. I don't get on nobody's top bunk. I need you to get up on that top bunk. The older guy said, yo, bro, I'm older. Why would you want to do me like that? I said, because I don't care. I said, and again, me talking like this to this man is because I was insecure. A lot of insecure people hide behind overly inflated strength that tries to hide that they're not as strong. A lot of the women that talk crazy to get to know them, they as mushy as a piece of goo, soft teddy bears. All those women that be like, cause I ain't, they're soft as a teddy bear, bro, once you get to know them. It's their way of hiding their trauma. It's a way of hiding their hurt. It's a way of hiding their pain. So looking back, I overly act like this to this man. I told him, you gonna get on the top bunk. This man said to me, youngster, why would you wanna do me like that? I'm an older gentleman. I said, I don't give a damn. I don't give a damn. I said, you gonna get on that top bunk. OG started talking to me, long story short. I talked to him all night. And as I was talking to this man, I never in my life met someone so intelligent, someone so caring, someone so passionate. And I was able to I was breaking down a little bit talking to him because I kind of started feeling a little level of vulnerability because he started showing me his vulnerability. This super strong older man started talking to me about how, you need to get secure with yourself. You need to learn who you are. You got to stop trying to hide behind who you are and learn yourself. And you're pretending to be this guy you're not. And he started telling me all these things. He was breaking me down like a fraction. He was breaking me down. The next morning, after ultimately that night, I gave him the bottom bunk. I took the top bunk. We talked all night. The next morning, he actually asked me, yo, what are you doing this morning? I was depressed. And I didn't want to tell him how depressed I was. So I said, no, I'm going to stay in the cell. He said, nah, we ain't doing that. He said, come with me to the mess hall. When I walked with him to the cafeteria, which is the mess hall, I noticed that a lot of people were staring at us. I kept asking myself the whole time, like, is this guy gay? Does he have a relationship with men or something? Like, I was wondering, like, what was wrong? And nothing against gay people. I'm just saying that's what I thought. And as I sat in the mess hall, I still kept noticing everyone kept staring at us. So then after we finished breakfast, he said, yo, what are you about to do now? I said, I'm going to go back to the cell. Mine, I'm still depressed. When we ate breakfast, I barely ate anything because I couldn't adapt to the fact that my mind, I was in a new place. You have to get acclimated to this place, right? So he said to me, what are you about to do now? And I said, I'm gonna go back to the cell. He said, nah. Come with me to the yard, youngster. You need some fresh air. So I said, all right, no problem. As we walked out the doors, he clapped, boom, boom, boom. Clapped 3 times. And he said, when he did that, about 30 Muslims lined up like this. And he said, I'm Mujahid. If I would have got in that top bunk, I would have killed you this morning. I looked at him. I have never in my life felt so vulnerable and so weak in my life. But then at that moment, he saw the little boy in me who was posing as a man because I was insecure. But I never had a man talk to me to that magnitude. I never had a man talk to the little boy in me to make me comfortable with being that little boy. I never was put in my place by a man. So I posed as a man even though I wasn't a man. And as he spoke to me, he walked the yard with me every day. He talked to me on a regular. And to the point where it started bringing out that little boy. Reminding myself that, yo, Q, you can still be vulnerable. You can still be weak. That little boy was told, you can't be vulnerable. That little boy was told, you can't show depression, sad, anxiety, depression. And that little boy became the man who ultimately kept hiding behind my insecurities. It was my struggles that created my character. Looking back to that moment was one of the most humbling experiences of my life. Because it wasn't about him trying to hurt me. It It was actually him killing the old me so I can become the new version of who I am today. That man killed that person. That egotistical, insecure little boy. He killed him. And I decided at that moment, I'm gonna start talking about what's the matter with me. He became like a therapist to me. He started allowing me to reveal. As he revealed his stories, I revealed my stories. We started talking about trauma. We started talking about things that we've gone through, realizing that a lot of our stories are very similar. A lot of people think they're the only ones going through struggles, but in reality, they aren't. But as I was able to speak on these things, it helped me heal. It helped me become comfortable speaking. And I told a man the other day, I said, the reason why most young people can't relate to older people, because older people, as they get older, they lose the memorization of that young person they were, that little girl, that little boy. So when you start getting older, you become that big woman and that big man. And when you become that big woman and that big man, you no longer have access to understanding the youth. Every person has that inner child. And if you can't connect with that inner child, you cannot connect with the youth. Because being comfortable with that inner child, it reminds you how you were when you were 12. It reminds you when you were 14. It reminds you when you were 16. So the fact that you can find that inner child again and you can talk to that inner child, you'll be able to understand the youth. Because by being an understanding person, right, it allows them to be more comfortable with speaking with you. We say that we're losing our youth. But the fact of the matter is we're losing the adults, the connection that the adults used to have with the youth. If you haven't noticed that, that's why. Everyone acts like they're the only ones going through struggle. Everyone acts like their struggles are the only ones that matter. Everyone acts like they're the only one that's been through anything. And this is what happens. You start talking about everyone down, and rather than seeing that everyone has a struggle that's made for them. It's the struggles that create the character. Baby steps in the right direction are still steps in the right direction. Baby steps in the right direction are still steps in the right direction. Some of us don't want to go take them baby steps. I took the leap of faith. And I'm going to tell you something. As I did my bid, the one thing I've loved is at the end, I remember I was cool with a CO. He used to let me go, give me a little bit of extra rec time. He said to me, Brown, my last name is Brown. He said, Brown, yo, you know you go home tomorrow, right? And I said, yeah. You know, he said, and my bid was rough. I'm gonna be honest with you, I got into a lot of fights. You know, a lot of insecurity that was in me, a lot of anger. You know, it took me a lot of time to heal. You know, I ended up maxing out, meaning going all the way to the end of my bid. I was supposed to come home a lot earlier, but I ended up maxing out because I had a lot of anger in me. But that moment with that Muslim priest, it actually helped me grow. But I remember the CEO said, Brown, is there anything you want to do? I said, I want to go to the chapel. He said, what do you mean you want to go to the chapel? I said, I just want to go to the chapel. I remember he let me out my cell. He let me go to the chapel. And when I went in the chapel, I think for the first time, I cried the biggest cry I think I've ever cried in my life, because I realized this bid was over. I realized that it was over. And I'm gonna be honest with you. Anybody that's ever been to prison, without God, ain't no walking out of that place. Because for me to walk out that place 10 times more intelligent, 10 times more secure with myself, 10 times more strong, 10 times more everything, I became a better man in prison. It sounds crazy to the average mind, but people don't understand. Where there's God, in the midst of anything, there is no storm. When I was in that storm, God always provided an umbrella. When I was in that storm, God always provided an umbrella. Because mentally, God would not let that place to break me. God would not allow that place to break me. He started showing me who I was. He started telling me who I was. I remember getting into a fight and they put me into the hole. And while I was in the hole, I'm sitting in the hole. I'm mad as hell at the CEOs. I'm mad at everybody, but I'm not mad at myself for making a poor decision, because this person had insecurity. I had insecurity. We only fighting because we're two insecure little boys. Two insecure little boys. When you can't control your anger will control you. When you can't control your anger will control you. And I allowed my anger for many years to control me because the struggles, right? I allowed the struggles to kill me. I struggled a lot. And I'm comfortable with speaking my truth because I allow my vulnerability to catch someone's ears. Someone hears, someone reveal, someone will heal. So I'm revealing my truth so when someone can heal, so they'll see that they're not the only ones going through struggle. They're not the only ones who had a bad mom or dad. They're not the only ones who grew up in the hood. They're not the only ones who's been hurt by a relationship. They're not the only ones who love someone that's not good for them. We all got our struggles, but it's to create the character. Your struggles are not made to break you. They're actually made to make you. But a lot of us won't allow ourselves to be made because the struggles we allow them to overconquer our minds. And I'm going to tell you, when I got in that chapel, I fell to my knees. I let out a cry. I think I only cried one time my whole bid. One time. The first time I've ever cried, and was when I got sentenced. I was standing there, I looked over at my mom, and I was trying to hold back and be tough. You know, I remember I was young, insecure as hell. I was trying so hard to be tough. When I looked over at my mom, right, and my mom's lips muttered, she said, I didn't raise you like this. When I say that broke me inside, I'm trying so hard to be tough in front of the DA. I'm trying so hard to be tough in front of the judge. I'm trying so hard to be tough. Broke me. I looked over at my mom mumbled, I didn't raise you like that. Broke me. So my tears started flowing. I couldn't even hold back. I was like, Then I remember after they sentenced me, I go to the back. And they put me back in the bullpen. Clean my face. I walk in there, they tell me, yo, what they gave you? That's light. What they gave me is nothing. I'm good. That's what I said to them. I'm good. Super fake alpha man. Knowing inside I was hurting. Knowing I had to be away from my family. Knowing my mom just muttered words to me that I didn't raise you like that. But I was hurting inside. And these are my struggles. But when you talk about struggling, a lot of people look at it as this is a moment of laughing. But I realize that these moments are what created who I am today. I'm not fearful of being vulnerable to people on live. I'm not fearful of allowing people to see me in my weaker state. Because I'm going to tell you something, some of the people that always act like they always got it together, they're the ones that don't have it together. Some of the people that act like they know it all, don't know a damn thing. Some of the people that act like they always secure are the most insecure. Some of the people that always talk the negative are always the most negative. The people that talk about people the most are always the people that hurt inside the most. And it took me years to realize that, right? In life, winning and losing will both happen, no matter how you slice it. What is never acceptable is quitting. No matter how you slice it, winning and losing will happen. But quitting is something that you should never accept. Never accept it. And I'm going to tell you, I remember coming home, and after I came home, I went into a barbershop. I came home on a Thursday. I went into a barbershop on a Friday. No, I'm lying. I came home that Thursday. I went to the owner of the barbershop, and I said, yo, you know, I want to jump right back into cutting. The owner of the shop said, yo, when you want to start? I said, I'm starting tomorrow. And I'm going to tell you something, and I want anyone to hear this. The one thing I've learned and what helped me become a better person, I had to remove myself from my old environment. I made myself so busy to the point where I had no time to be in the hood. So even if I lived there, if I was there, I was never there because I was so busy that I didn't have time to do anything wrong. Because they say an idle mind is the devil's workshop. An idle mind is the devil's workshop. So I had to make myself not idle so I could not go back into my old ways. Because I noticed every time I did something bad, it was because I was being idle. So I stopped being idle. I said, I got to keep myself so active, so busy that I don't even have time to do anything wrong. And while I was busy, I realized that all I was doing was working on myself. I was saving money. I was being healed because I was talking about things I was going through. A year later, I ended up buying the barbershop from the owner. I saved so much money in that first year that I bought the shop from the owner within a year. 1 year of coming home. And I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't want to buy the barbershop. But I'm going to tell you how God operates. I've owned a shop forever and a day. I've owned a shop so long, I'm in the double digits of years. I've owned it forever. That shop has raised so many people. But I'm going to tell you something. When I was in that barbershop, the owner of the shop was going through a divorce. And I'm going to tell you something. I was so comfortable with who I was becoming, I didn't want to lose that shop. So the owner of the shop said, I'm going to leave the shop. He said, Q, I'm going to close it or you can buy it from me. So I said, yo, no, I'm lying. He said, I'm going to sell it to you or I'm going to sell the shop. So I said, what do you want for it? He didn't know I was saving so much money. He had no clue. So I said, what do you want for it? He told me, and I went home that night. And I'm going to tell you how weak I was at one point. I called a guy that I know. His name is Dave. I said, Dave, you should partner up with me in the barbershop. Because I was so scared to take on that responsibility myself. I had to be about like 22, 23 years old. I was like 22, 23 years old when I got this barbershop. So I said, damn, I'm so young. I don't think I'm mature enough to do this. So I called Dave. I said, yo, Dave, you should partner up with me. Dave goes, bet, let's do it. He was so hyped about doing it. I'm like, what am I not seeing? What am I not seeing? So I went home that night. I thought about it all night. The next morning I called Dave. I said, Dave, I'm going to do it by myself. Dave said, what you say? I said, I don't want no partner. I'm going to do it by myself. Dave said, yo, Q, but it'd be better if I partner. I said, I'm going to do it by myself. Because I'm going to tell you something. Sometimes God give you blessings, and a lot of us talk ourselves out of our own blessing. We trick ourselves at our own spot. So I said to him, I'm going to do it myself. I don't want your help. I'm going to do it by myself. I walked in that barbershop. I gave this man his money. He signed over that shop to me. And that shop has still been running ever since. I done been through COVID. I done been through every kind of trials and tribulations and opened up more businesses because that business taught me how to be a businessman. And it also taught me how to be a great man. Is the responsibilities. I went through many struggles with this shop, but I persevered and got through it. So while I was going through these trials and tribulations, it was making me the man I am today. Some people say your story is cap. Some say your stories is a lie. Some people say the story sounds like a movie. But when I look back at the movie, I say to myself, I can see why great books are written. Because most things are based on people's lives. And my life is every bit of a motion picture story. And I look back that it's the struggles that made me the great man you see today. I'm not ashamed of allowing myself to speak on my experiences because there's someone struggling with identifying who they are. Because you can look in the mirror and still not recognize who you see. You can look in the mirror and still not recognize who you see. There are a lot of people who look in the mirror and don't recognize themselves because they're not seeing themselves in the light. You're looking in the mirror with the lights off. That's the problem. You're in the dark, staring in the mirror, wondering why you can't see yourself. You're in the dark, staring in the mirror and wondering why you can't see yourself. It's time that somebody turn on that damn light and see how great they truly are. Because you look at your moments and you cry about your experiences. You won't triumph over the greatest stories are the ones that have the comeback. The ones that break molds that the average person will never break. You don't realize that this is a part of your story. Your story is meant to happen this way. Everything happens to you for a reason. Because while you see it's happening to you, it's actually happening for you. And that's what you don't realize. Me not having a father made me a better father. Me going through home to home to home made me work my behind off to buy a big home. Everything that I went through, I triumphed over it. I climbed every mountain. I broke down every wall because I realized the struggles is what's meant to happen. But a lot of us want to run away from our struggles. We want to avoid our greatest version of self. Because I always say, in order to see the greatest version of self, one must go through the ugliest and see the ugliest versions of themselves. You can't be scared to take the steps. Because the person that's going to laugh at you the most is the person that's not even willing to try. You're worried about someone who's not even willing to try. You're worried about someone who do not see themselves as great. You're worried about someone who's contradicting everything they say with their actions. They say they want to be great, but they're lazy. They say they want to win, but they ain't doing anything. These are the people you go ask advice from. And you're getting the wrong advice. That's like asking someone that's never been somewhere for directions. God damn. You asking the wrong people for directions. Sometimes I find myself waking up, cold sweats, stressing, wondering when, how, where. But in the same time, I say to myself, okay, I know what you're doing, God. This is the next test before you give me the next blessing. This is the next test before you give me the next blessing. Because he has to see that you're worthy before he give you the blessing. A lot of y'all say y'all want things that y'all can't even sustain and maintain. A lot of people say they want a big house until they see the responsibilities of a big house. A lot of people say they want an expensive car till they got to pay that car note. A lot of people say they want to go to a big school until they realize how hard the curriculum is. A lot of people say they want money until they realize that the hardest part is not about getting money, it's about keeping money. And that's what people don't understand. That's the hardest part, is the sustainability. But a lot of us don't see that. We've gone through what we've gone through and we allowed ourselves to stay in these moments. Life becomes easier when you learn to accept the apology you never got. Y'all didn't hear me. Life becomes easier when you learn to accept the apology that you never got. There's somebody on my live right now that need to apologize to themselves. And I'm going to say it with you guys. I apologize to myself. I'm sorry. And I'm looking you dead in your eyes. I want you to look me dead in my eyes. I'm sorry. I've allowed you to not have the best life that you could possibly have. I've made more poor mistakes on myself. I've done wrong by myself. I second guess who I am. I quit when I should have never quit. I should have done more. I should have never made excuses. And today I ain't making no more excuses. Today I'm giving myself that apology that I genuinely believe that I need to give myself. I look at myself and say, Q, I'm sorry. Because there was times I let you down. Because a part of me always knew who I was. But a part of me never wanted to accept it because I was worried about what others would think by me accepting who I am. You tell a big dream to a small-minded person, you'll realize how fast your dream will be revoked. People will always push you away when they know that you're somebody. This is the problem. So today I'm giving myself that apology. Someone in my life say right now, please say I'm sorry to myself. Please, someone in my life say that right now. I'm sorry to myself. I'm looking right now. Someone say I'm sorry to myself. I am sorry to myself. Someone say it. I'm going to wait right now. Someone say, I am sorry to myself. And no, there's no one that owes themselves an apology. No one. Someone said, I'm sorry to myself. Someone said, I'm sorry to myself. Someone said, I'm sorry to myself. Nicole Starr said, I'm sorry to myself. Let's go. Jay said, I'm sorry to myself that yesterday. Novelette said, I'm sorry to myself. Let's go. Let's keep going. Boss Dre said, I'm sorry to myself. Angelo said, I am sorry to myself. Right? Right? Give me one more person. Prophet said, I'm sorry to myself. Listen, when you realize that you owe yourself everything you feel like you deserve. All right, we keep going. Megan said, I'm sorry to myself. Connie said, I'm sorry to myself. This is what we need to realize, that I'm sorry to myself. Because I realized that it wasn't the world. It was me. I failed classes because of me. I didn't save money not because of my lack of financial literacy, because of me. I chose to hang out with the wrong people because of me. I did the wrong things because of me. I stayed around what made me comfortable because of me. When you start pointing fingers, you'll realize 3 is being pointed at yourself, because you're supposed to hold yourself way more responsible to what you do and don't do. So today I suggest you start pointing at yourself. And 3 will be pointed at the world. Rather than you point the finger at someone, which is 1 finger, and 3 being pointed back at self. So now you point that finger at self, you'll see 3 being pointed at the world now, right? Point all the fingers at yourself. All the fingers pointed at you. Everything at me. Everything. I'm accountable. I'm going to make my decisions. I'm going to change my life. I'm going to give myself everything I feel like I deserve. Because that term struggle is what created my character. And my character would have never been created without my struggles. So looking back, if I never went through what I went through, I genuinely believe I would be who I am today. I used to regret a lot of things about my life. I used to say, I wonder if my dad was here. And anyone that grew up without a father, I want them to ask it, honestly, have you ever thought like that? What would my life have been if my father was there? What would my life have been if your father was there? What would your life have been if you didn't grow up in a bad area? What would your life have been if you were taught better? What would your life have been if, if someone would have grabbed your hand and helped you walk out of your insecurities? What would your life be? But I'm going to tell you something funny. I'm going to be honest. The reason why you have to forgive yourself, because the only person that's stopping you from getting to where you want to be is you. And as long as you don't heal and forgive yourself, you're going to keep feeding yourself what you shouldn't be eating anymore. A lot of us have given ourselves the worst of the worst. Struggling is not the identity, right? You must learn to live while struggling, such that anyone who sees can separate the struggle from your life. Someone said, I lost my dad 2 years ago. I wish he was still here. And I want to say this to you, Star. When we look at you, we should be able to see your father. So technically, your father will live through you. So understand, we don't lose people, right? We don't lose them, right? It's just a moment before you see them again. A lot of times we get so caught up in when we lose someone. But that's just another angel for you. That's just another reason to make someone else proud. That's just another reason to go hard. Because when you look at what that man life meant to you, it should be a reflection of what you're doing for yourself, because he wish he could be here to do it with you. He wish he could be here with you to do it with you. And the fact that he can't, you should be doing everything in your power to make that man so proud. Because I'm pretty sure he's smiling down right now like I am proud of my daughter. And I tell you, we don't hurt when we lose people anymore. We rejoice. Because again, it's that struggle that's gonna make you stronger. So I suggest you go after the goals, the dreams. Someone said, I lost my dad in 2007. I understand. Losing people is not easy. Losing people is the hardest thing about the journey of life, right? But allow these people to understand that there's a reason why God calls your call every morning. He calls your phone. He gives you something called the wake-up call. And as long as you continue to get this wake-up call, right, we need to learn that that's the blessing. We don't lose people, we live through them, right? We don't lose people, we live through them. So we gotta allow our people to live through us. I realize that this is the moment where I actually forgive myself. No longer second guessing myself. No longer dimming my light. I told myself I'm gonna shine so bright that if a person wants to be around me, they're either gonna have to squint or they're gonna get used to my brightness. I'm no longer gonna shine less than what I am. I'm not second guessing myself no more. I know who I am. And once you know who you are, that is the ultimate battle for you becoming the greatest version of self. A lot of times we gotta look in the mirror and see that being happy is your responsibility. Being happy is your responsibility. If you don't allow yourself to be happy, because it's your responsibility to be happy, you'll never be happy. If you keep waiting on people to make you happy, you'll never be happy. So I'm gonna say this before I get out of here today, guys. When you learn that struggle is what creates your character, then you realize that your character is defined by your struggles. And your struggles is what ultimately creates your character. Never run from the struggles. Embrace the struggles, and you'll see how much stronger will become your character. Till next time, guys, don't let that go over your head.